Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 5th episode of the Crag Chat Podcast. Today, I have my friend DJ on the podcast. DJ, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So, DJ is the manager at On the Rocks, and I'm just curious, how'd you get into that?
Prior to working here, I was a teacher. I was a teacher for 10 years, and I kind of wanted to try something else out. And I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, whether it was kind of another full-time role or piece together part-time work. I was climbing here at the time, and they had posted some openings for some part-time help. I figured, I liked climbing there. The people that worked there seemed nice. I'll apply. Maybe that'll at least take care of that.
How long had you been climbing here?
I think it was pretty close to when it had opened.
Yeah, because Jed and I got here 6 months after On the Rocks kind of had started. Mm-hmm. So it's we feel very fortunate because we're coming from Sandusky.
Right.
It's a 35-minute drive to here. If we had to go to the gyms in Cleveland, it would be a full hour. So we're yes, we lucked out on this.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And we're very fortunate along those lines to have a gym kind of so far removed from a major city center. You look at most gyms and they're located a lot more closely to a big city. So, it's farm fields essentially to the south and to the west of here. So it's kind of awesome. I wish this was here when I was growing up in the area.
Yeah.
Sure.
So you're originally from around here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
The rumors about the brewery that are happening, is that still a thing?
So our owner, that is a plan for him. And, we're sitting in the yoga room right now, and essentially it's going to be right out those windows.
Okay.
I'll save you the story there, but those plans are still in the works. A lot of the delays to this point have been because of global supply chain issues and rising costs of materials and things. So
everything.
Yeah. While it's not a guarantee, it's something that he still wants to do. So
yeah, for sure. So we just got back from a trip to Denver, and one of the fun facts about that gym that we went to is that it was connected to a brewery.
Okay.
So for anyone that's listening that climbs it On the Rocks or is in the area, basically what we're referring to is there's hypothetical plans to maybe put a brewery in next to On the Rocks, which would be really cool, a climber hangout.
Yep. And
spot.
You'll be able to, and I don't know his most current plans, but originally he also wanted to have an outdoor stage and sand volleyball, axe throwing, darts, pool. Whether or not those are still in the works, I'm not sure. However, it seems like he definitely kind of wants the two places to work together and be accessible to each other. Now, obviously, not going to the bar first and then coming over here and climbing, but still being able to kind of work and coordinate with each other. So.
Well, I normally throw this in later on the episode, but I feel like this is a great segue into who supports our podcast, and that's Athletic Brewing. So right now,
perfect. I
am drinking the Free Wave, which is a hazy IPA.
And I have the Run Wild IPA, which this will be my first sip of it. So, first sip. Yeah. But so if you're interested in drinking beforehand or drinking during your climbing in a safe, responsible way, Athletic Brewing is a great way to do that. It's a non-alcoholic beer, and you can get 20% off with the code Courtney S20 at checkout on your first purchase at athleticbrewing.com, and all that information is going to be in the show notes. So thank you to Athletic Brewing for supporting the pod. Absolutely, thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. And my Free Wave is a little bit more hoppy than the Run Wild. I remember when I was first starting to drink beer, if I would have had an IPA like this, I would be like, whoa, that is a lot. But yeah, no, super cool company. So let's go back to, you got into managing the gym, so you applied.
Sure. Yeah, I applied, was fortunate enough to be hired. At the time, I was just working part-time and, just all the different part-time roles around. And the previous manager, about a month after I started, approached me and she said, look, I am going to be moving. I plan on, I just want to be closer to my family. Any interest in becoming the manager? And that's kind of how it happened. I said yes, and here we are.
What's been one of the most rewarding parts and like exciting parts about being the manager? And then on the flip side, what's been like a challenge that you feel like other gym managers or even like the community might not be aware of how hard it is to be a manager? They just kind of like take it for granted.
Sure.
Because I would like to say, and this is not just me sucking up to you, I really value the community and everything here on the Rocks, and I think that you're a big part of that and the reason that everything keeps going. So it's been like my experience on the Rocks has been really positive, and I know you're a big part of that.
Oh,
so
thank you. It's very kind.
Yeah, of course.
Along those lines too, I would be remiss if I didn't give credit to the current staff that we have.
See, I knew you weren't gonna.
Absolutely. I mean, they're so awesome, right?
No,
and
our staff is great.
Very fortunate too that the previous managers hired such quality people. It has made life for me, and I know a lot of gyms there's higher turnover amongst staff, and in 2+ years since I've been here, we've not had to hire anybody else because everyone else has stayed. I'm not ignorant to the fact that will always be the case. However, it has been nice in the sense that, okay, learning the role has been much easier because I haven't had to worry about hiring other people. For me, that is going to, when that time comes, that is going to be a very time intensive and like mentally draining process.
Right, especially in the current conditions that we're in.
For sure. And I just want to make sure that we get the right person or people in when the time comes.
Right, because it's easier to hire someone that's right for the role than to hire 3 or 4 people that aren't. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So would you say that the staff and getting to know them and stuff and the people that climb at the gym has been one of the more rewarding parts then?
Yeah, for sure. And kind of reflecting on teaching a little bit, I get to do a lot of the things that I enjoyed about teaching at this job without a lot of the other kind of bureaucratic nonsense that, and some of the other things that were not my favorite part of teaching. So it's kind of the best of that world.
I don't know if you know this about me, but my mom is a teacher.
Oh, I didn't know.
And she taught before she had me, and then when she had me and my 4 younger siblings, she stopped teaching until my youngest sibling went back to kindergarten.
Okay.
And then she decided to go back to teaching, and yeah, it was a lot of that. She's like, the whole landscape of teaching has just changed so much. It's not even the same anymore. So I know she really struggled with some of those things as well, because it was never the kids. The kids were great.
Right.
You know, obviously you have your little Jimmies and Susans that are problem kids or whatever, but that's almost another rewarding part of it is just like you see climbers at the gym, you know, that might be struggling or whatever, being able to grow with them and see that growth.
Yeah. And that is one of the biggest, even if it's someone who's just in here for, let's say, a day, they're just trying it out. And at the start of the day, they have some sort of fear, or they only make it a certain distance up the wall. And then all of a sudden later in the day, some of that fear has disappeared. Now all of a sudden they're comfortable coming down on the autoblaze and they're lighting up with a smile instead of, kind of being scared. Or someone who just, as we know, like you're working on a particular route or problem for, be it a day, a week, a month, and then finally, after you've put that work into it, finally achieving it. That's just, it's cool to experience, both, if you're climbing and then to watch others do it too. So it's, I guess overall, working here we're very fortunate because people who walk through the door typically want to be here. And how many jobs are there out there where people that are coming through the door actually want to be there?
It's not exactly the DMV.
Right, exactly. Perfect.
Or I guess in Ohio it's the BMV.
Right,
you guys are weird here.
Yeah, definitely.
No, for sure. I know that you do Ironmans and like triathlons. You're very overall just a fitness. Fitness seems to be a lot of your lifestyle.
Sure.
So how does climbing fit into that for you? Is it one of your main focuses, or is it a little bit... Working at a climbing gym, is it something you put a little bit more to the side for your mental? Like, I'm just curious.
Sure. That's a great question. I haven't done a race in a while, so it's probably 50-50 right now. I see both of them as hobbies, but equally as important for kind of a balance for me. Yeah, I guess that would be I guess that would be the best way to put it. If I were training for a race, would a little bit more focus go into triathlon? Probably. I've never really had a project outside in climbing, so I can't, I've had plenty of projects in the gym. I guess I've never dedicated as much time to climbing as I have to triathlon.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that couldn't change if I get inspired by a project or something someday.
Listen, I totally get it. I feel I sensed your like hesitancy to try and, show that you're passionate about everything without being like, this or that, because I feel the same way. I'm a runner. I've been a runner longer than I've been a climber. Oftentimes, people know me for one or the other or whatever,
Sure.
and I feel that guilt to, I'm Courtney the runner. I'm Courtney. It's like, no, just like let people be people. One of my favorite runners, actually, her name's Alexi Pappas. I don't know if you've heard of her, but really cool. She's an Olympian. And on top of that, she's made like 2 movies. She's really into films, and she also wrote a book. And I know like a lot of Olympians write books, but she's like a writer as in like poetry and emotion type of, which is really cool. And I'm currently reading one of her her only book, Bravey. And it talks a lot about like how being brave doesn't mean that you're not scared. Mm-hmm. And that's something that Jed always says to me is one time I had said to him, like, how are you so brave, like, to do this? And he says to me, he's like, oh, you're way braver than I am. I'm not scared to do it. And that just, like, blew me away. So first off, like, what are your climbing goals? Is it just do you have any specific goals, or is it more for enjoyment?
I guess it's definitely for enjoyment.
I mean, that should be number one, right?
Right, absolutely. And I guess part of the enjoyment is getting better. So getting better in the sense of, being able to climb higher and higher grades, and then being able, technique-wise, being able to do things I wasn't previously able to do. Mm-hmm. So.
And that, like, sense of satisfaction that comes along with that. Now, I'm assuming you like sport climbing a little bit better than bouldering? I see you in the sport climbing area more. Did you start off sport climbing, or did you start, obviously not leading, but.
Right, yeah, absolutely. So the first time I ever went to a climbing gym, it was Kendall Cliffs down in Peninsula. It was like a training stopper, just kind of a break, quote unquote break, for a bike training ride. We were going to do a really long bike ride. We were training for it. So we were going to ride down to Kendall Cliffs, climb, and then ride back.
How far is that?
We were from Cleveland Heights, so I don't know. I'd had it's probably 30-ish miles one way. I was going to say like 30 or 40 miles. Okay, cool. And rainbowed up twice on top rope and was done for the day. And then hadn't climbed. I don't think we climbed. This is my friend and I who I do a lot of kind of outdoor adventure stuff with. Hadn't climbed again, and then for a year or so. And at the time, we were living in Cleveland Heights on the east side, and then went to Cleveland Rock Gym. Rest in peace. And
Paradiso, the new Paradiso.
Right, exactly. I guess when we started climbing there, it was probably a mix, probably 50-50 split between top rope and bouldering there. Uh-huh.
They don't have a lot for bouldering really either at Kendall Cliffs. Or wait, sorry, this is at the new gym.
Yeah, this was at CRG. And I guess it just kind of depended. I think back on those times, and I could be misremembering, but it seemed like we spent a little bit more time bouldering.
Isn't it so... Sorry, not to cut you off, but isn't it so weird how when you think back on your earliest climbing memories, at least for me, there's like, you can't even compare it to now because it's a totally different perception. And I was talking to Jed on the way over about this. I said, I remember watching other climbers like read routes or, talk about beta. And I was just like, first off, I didn't know what the word beta meant.
Of course. So many goofy terms in climbing. But.
And then I remember like specifically looking at this route one time. Maybe I told you this story already, but there's this route that just goes straight up. The holds are just boom, boom, boom in a line. And it's obviously to teach you, how to flag. But I just had no clue how to do it. I was like, this is impossible. This is absolutely... And then I very specifically remember someone being like, okay, no, this is how you do it. And just feeling like, man, like I just climbed something insane, right? But knowing that I didn't actually, it's like, are there any like specific routes in your memory or like specific techniques or like advice that someone told you early on that you're just like, it blew your mind? Or was it more just like slowly?
Yeah, I think I definitely don't have, at least as I sit here and think about it, one of those mind-blowing one-time experiences. It's just kind of a collection of little tips and tricks and experimentation and observation of other people and kind of figuring it out.
I think that actually what you just said is super important though, because I feel like newer climbers, they tend to come into the gym and like think that there's gonna be like that, 8 hacks to climbing V3 or whatever. And it's like, as a YouTuber, I see those videos and I understand why people make them. I'm absolutely not saying that they shouldn't make them. But it's like frustrating as someone that's climbed for a little bit longer to be like, listen, there really is no secret thing. You just have to do that. And that's life, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Like, I'm sure with your Ironman training, I mean, I keep going back to that, but people that do Ironmans just have like an impressive sort of resolve to them. And how many have you done?
Just one. Just one to this point. Yeah.
Just one.
Yeah.
Okay. For some reason, I thought that you had done multiple.
I've done multiple triathlons, only one iron distance.
Yeah. Yeah. I have some friends that they've done, I think like 12. The one guy's he does it like every year. And it's like staying at that level of fitness for so long is just so impressive. And yeah, it's crazy to me.
You've heard of the Iron Cowboy too?
What is that?
Okay, so James Lawrence is his name. He became famous, this was a handful of years ago. He set out to do an Ironman distance triathlon in all 50 states in 50 days. So one a day.
I have heard of this. And okay, wait, so explain the rest of the story.
So, that was the goal. So it was, a big logistical thing and, where do you start? Where do you end? And he tried to set up.
How do you recover from that?
Exactly. And some of they had a documentary about that. I can't remember what platform it was on. Probably still on one of them. He wrote a book. But it was interesting, definitely interesting. And just to be able to operate on that, that many calories that were required each day, all of the injuries, and of course the lack of sleep, especially some of those states that are so far apart from each other. Some of the states are so big.
And all 50 states, I mean, that's going to include Alaska and Hawaii as well. So like said,
that's where he started.
Yeah, so he started in those ones. And then, did he actually manage to do it?
He did it, yeah. He did it. And now I think his thing is 100 Ironmans in 100 days.
Yeah, 50 wasn't good enough.
Right. But I think the catch here, I mean, what a wimp, right? I think he's doing them in the same place each time.
Gotcha.
And he's from Utah. I think he's doing them all in Utah. I could be totally wrong on this.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, so we, I think, we got back from a trip to Denver. And it's really cool to see just like the culture there. Like you go and, for example, I went out on a run in the morning and it was like there was tons of people running and walking their dogs and everything, and that's just such a cool vibe. But the thing that I think is really cool is like culture is created by the people that are in it, right? So it's like we can create that in other places. And when you think of Ohio, I mean, I think I in the podcast notes, like, hi, I'm Courtney, a climber from Ohio. And it's like, I expect people to kind of like maybe put in a laugh track there or whatever. Because it's like Ohio, but it's like, it is so surprising how much of a community and how many places there are to climb. Are they the biggest and best? No, but I think that's a really good life lesson, is like, you take what you have and, happiness is expectation minus reality, and you roll with it. And like, I've had a ton of fun here, over the past 2-3 years.
Right.
So, and I think that, part of that is, building community and like coming to the gym regularly. People always, I don't know if this is something, that you talk about with staff at all, but like what makes a welcoming gym. And I think it's really like the people that climb there.
Sure.
Because I remember there's some other gyms that I've been to. It's just like, you don't feel the community. And I really feel the community here. So that's cool. But, so gym climbing.
Right. Yeah. Bouldering versus ropes, right? I never guessed. I was classic DJ, making a short story long.
Listen, I specifically started this podcast because I am so sick of like having it, like hearing someone just like give me a one-word answer. Like I want to actually get to know someone, So like that's fine. That was the perfect answer. So you started gym climbing and then
started gym climbing, and I would say now I do much more rope climbing than bouldering. I like bouldering. It beats me up a little bit.
It's tough.
Yeah, a lot of lot of the dynamic movements, and then especially when it's compression, I just kind of elbow, triceps area. And of course, I haven't done enough, management to those areas to probably fix whatever issue is actually going on. Of course not.
Of course not. It's so funny because I got sick in December and I actually took a month off climbing.
Mm-hmm.
I took a month off life.
Right.
I was just in bed. And what do you know? My wrist injury is magically healed if you just take time off.
Right.
That's so funny. So, okay, I'm curious. So 2 things that I really wanted to make sure that I hit.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, when I invite them on the podcast, it's early days, so I haven't invited a lot of people on yet. But something that I do is I often go on social media to kind of, learn about a little bit about them and try to figure things out. And guess how that went for me, DJ?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Is that an intentional thing? So what I'm referring to, DJ has absolutely 0 social media, or at least 0 that I could find.
Right.
Is that something that you've done intentionally, or just it doesn't interest you, or what's up with that?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. And I can't really say for sure where that stems from. I do have social media accounts. In my entire life, and I've had them probably since 2006, or at least, Facebook at first, 2006-ish.
Isn't it crazy how far away 2006
yeah.
is? I don't want to think about it.
I think I have posted one thing ever.
Well, from my perspective, the reason that I ask about it is I think, and I know that I've tried to tell you this in the past, but I need to make it public, DJ. I just think that you have one of the best mental outlooks on life in general. And I want to know, I want that, you know? And I think social media can be a huge distraction from having that mental clarity. So I was just curious. I also know that, being married to someone like Jed's a very humble guy. Mm-hmm. You're very humble as well. Social media is just... as someone that's on social media, I try not to just be like, hey, I'm here. But it's a little bit like the kid that, draws a picture and shows their mom. But instead of showing their mom, they're showing everyone.
Right.
But yeah, no. And I was curious, too, because I get a lot of inspiration, from climbing through social media and stuff, too. Even outdoor stuff. Do you have any, aspirations to climb outdoors? Or, have you climbed outdoors?
Mm-hmm. I have. Pretty fortunate to have been to a couple really cool places too, both some of the iconic spots in the US and some of the,
Where'd you go?
lesser known. So I guess locally, I need to start with this. Shamefully, I have not been to the Red yet, and I've caught a lot of grief from people around the gym, and it's totally justified.
As much as I love outdoor climbing, all things, I never want to push things on people. So if you want to be a gym climber for the rest of your life, cool. I'm just curious because, we've never talked about it.
And I do enjoy climbing outside. So the fact that, we live 5 whatever hours it is from the Red, and I've not been there, it is a bit, it hurts. It hurts. But I will get there. I told a handful of people that this year will be the year. I have been to the New once or twice, but I guess the vast majority of my, bigger outside climbing things have been out west. A friend and I did Smith Rock.
What's that? What was that like?
Incredible. It was absolutely incredible. And there's so many climbs there, right? And if you've had the experience of, climbing outside and trying to locate a specific climb in a field of climbs, it can be very, very difficult.
Oh, for sure.
So we hired a guide, and he was invaluable, absolutely invaluable. He took us, where to go, what time we needed to go, told us everything, asked us kind of what we needed or what we were looking to do, picked out a handful of climbs for us, told us when we had to meet him, just everything that he said. He was so knowledgeable of the area. We would have spent forever trying to find all of these and would have got caught in the sun and all sorts of stuff. So if you climb there, I can't recommend finding someone with some knowledge, be it a guide or some
Do you remember the name of the guide at all?
Gabe was his first name. I I'd have to find
it out.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
He was
and we'll put it in the
incredible.
show. Shout out to Gabe.
Yeah.
You made DJ's climbing experience at Smith Rock the absolute best.
Yeah.
That is so important. And I know that on my channel, a lot of the times, the videos that are really popular are guide videos. And people will say, well, you should do more guide videos. I'm like, listen, I'm not going to do like a guide video unless I actually know the area. And that just comes with experience. And like you said, you know, I've lived you just can't get everywhere. Someone was saying on social media the other day, they said, you know, I hate to break this to you, but you're never going to climb all the climbs. Like you're just, there's no, right. Like, which is both encouraging, right? Because it's like, oh, there's always something to climb. But it's like, oh, I'm never going to get to do it all. That's right. That's just life. Yeah. But yeah, no, Smith Rock is definitely somewhere that I want to get to.
Definitely go. It's really cool. My friend and I did our first multi-pitch in Smith Rock. And that was with Gabe. We did our first kind of multi-pitch on our own. Also in Oregon, a couple years later in Willamette National Forest, I think it was, and that was a very, very cool experience as well. Kind of doing it on our own, and it was a cool climb probably because of that experience. There was climbed in California, a couple places, Pinnacle and Joshua Tree, and Northern California by Crescent City, right on the PCH. There's a really cool little spot, and it's probably the most scenic place I've ever climbed. It also, you know, didn't hurt that it was perfect, like 70-degree day, and there weren't too many people there. But it was right on the ocean. It was right on the ocean. It was really cool. I can't remember. Lost something maybe. I can't remember what it was called.
But you could hear the waves.
Oh, I mean, it was right there.
You
know, some of the climbs could only be done when the tide was down.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, you're standing in.
That's kind of like at Somersville with the New River Gorge. You know, like the first bolt is literally below the water line for parts of the year. I was so confused when I first went there. I was like, how does this work?
Yeah.
But no, that's cool. Northern California is definitely beautiful. So when I did, for anyone listening that doesn't know, I did a run from San Francisco to New York with a team of people. Incredible experience. Like that's a whole nother story in itself. But Northern California was like one of my favorite spots. And there's, I don't know, Crescent City sounds familiar. Is it near Bernie, California at all? Do you know? Because Birdie Falls is one of the most beautiful waterfalls I've ever been to. And I'm sure there's good climbing around there.
Right. I'm not sure if it's close to Bernie. I do know it's relatively close to the Oregon border. So, you know.
Yeah. I mean, that's the path that we took. So I'm sure. You mentioned having trouble finding climbs. And that's like, gosh, that's like half the climbing trip, right? And anyone that's newer to going out to outside, I think that's part of the learning curve, like realizing you just gotta be patient and like figure it out. But segueing into something that I thought was interesting is the other day, one of the people that works here was like, yeah, DJ figured out that my hair was red today. Which really confused me because I was like, you know, DJ's known you for a while. How did he not know? And DJ, you're colorblind.
I am colorblind. Yep.
How do you how does that work in the gym? Is it difficult? Is it something that
it can be. From what I understand, people in general, sometimes depending on the light in the gym or what color holds are set next to the others, even people who aren't colorblind can have some issues.
Yep. Yeah.
It's probably just magnified for me. So it's red-green color blindness. And so when purples and blues are set next to each other, especially on maybe a light blue wall, or reds and blacks under low light, especially if they've been chalked up, which I don't think, like I said, is
some of the holes are practically white.
Exactly. Anything new. Purples and reds, sometimes oranges and reds can get me. So in a sense, I try to, put the positive spin on it. You almost, it kind of forces you to be really intentional with where your next move is and kind of remembering, where holds are, which potentially would serve you well outside as well.
Yeah.
When things aren't
and
color-coded,
outside,
so.
I mean, it's not really going to matter that much.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's so funny. That's interesting because, so 2 things on that. One, I was on Reddit, and there's a guy that actually is, he created an app. It's in its beta phase, and it's basically like you hold your phone up and it and you tap a hold.
Really?
And then it identifies like all the holds of that same color.
Really?
And he was asking for names, and someone was saying like it should be called On-Site or something. You know, like there was some clever puns and whatever. But yeah, I was wondering, and I think he made it originally because he or one of his friends was colorblind, and I think he just, you know, he's a climber, he wants, and an app developer, he just wanted to make something cool. But no, there's like a lot of support, like, oh, that's really cool. And then the other thing is that, yeah, when I'm in the gym, I have never been good at, well, my general personality is kind of like, I don't like to take my time and think about things all the time. I just like to go. I'm just hyped, you know? So I've never been very good at route reading. But one of the things that helps me get better at it is actually climbing on the tension board. Because on the tension board, a lot of the times you can't see the lights underneath the holds. So you have to take the time to stop and figure it out and whatever. Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting like perspective on it. But yeah.
Whether or not it's true, I'm not sure. I'm just telling myself that. So this is going to serve me well outside when, you know, I kind of have to remember the little nuances of a climb and, my foot goes here, not, you know, one little pebble over or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
I remember it is interesting because like when I was a newer climber, I remember like being just mind blown that like my friend told me to move my thumb from here to here, you know, and I know you guys are listening, but I'm moving my thumb a very minuscule distance. And it's just crazy how like those small nuances can make such a difference. No, okay, you were a teacher, right? What were you a math teacher? What did you specify or?
Yeah, again, I'm probably going to make a short story longer than it needs to be. So
we're here for it.
Right. I did a little bit of everything. I guess the main classes that I taught were Spanish and then English to the students who didn't grow up speaking it. English second language, they call it, ESL. Cool. And then I actually did teach some math as well. Okay. So
because I thought I heard that you were potentially a math teacher. And one of our future guests on the podcast, Matt. Okay. He is a math professor.
No way.
You know, he has a PhD.
Matt who climbs it.
Yeah. And so I was curious, my brain does not work in that, I got A's in calculus. I'm not going to say that I deserved I didn't cheat.
Okay. All right.
I just had very generous, lovely teachers that knew that getting A's was very important to me. Okay. But yes, so does math, like, and the way that you look at climbs, are you like a physics type of are you more logic based? Do you seem more logic based than like maybe
spiritual emotional type thing?
Yeah.
Which intelligence? I'd say that's probably pretty fair. But not so extreme that while it's probably the dominant of the two, I wouldn't say it's so super dominant that the other one doesn't come into play.
Right. Yeah. No, because it's always interesting to me, the people that, they take like 8 years to look at the climb and the 40 degrees and all that. And I'm just like, all right, I'm going to try it while you're figuring it out. I'm just going to actually give it a go.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. I would say that I'm relatively calculated, although I don't spend a ton of time route reading because I also find that and I don't know, surely there are climbers out there who almost have like a photographic memory where they read the route from the ground, and when they get to that point on the climb, they remember how they've read it from the ground, and that is how they're going to attempt to do it if it still feels correct. That is definitely not the case for me. For me, any route reading that's done is like, okay, it looks like it goes this way, which maybe inspire a little bit of confidence that the route can actually be done. However, when I get up on the wall, it's a totally different story. I typically don't remember what I saw from the ground, and I just try to figure it out up there. Yeah. So I guess I don't spend a ton of time reading routes.
Yeah, you and me both. Yeah. Although I've gotten better at it. I feel like it's just like anything, a skill that comes with practice. What's something that you're excited about in climbing? Like, what's what do you got going on this year? I know that you said you don't have any specific goals, but like, what's something that excites you about climbing? Is it the red?
Yeah, getting back outside climbing. Actually, I didn't spend a whole ton of time outside last year climbing. So getting those trips outside, as you know, it's as much about just being outside as it is the actual climb itself, and just being out in nature. And looking forward to getting back to it for sure.
Yeah, I always say that, like, it's so funny because climbing outside is kind of just like an excuse to be outside without. I mean, is climbing up rocks for literally no reason like a good excuse? I don't know, but it seems to be more socially acceptable than just like going and standing by some tall rocks.
Right. But what was the one quote? Something along the lines of climbing not having a real practical purpose type of thing. And not even pretending that it does.
Listen, I don't know what the quote is. You don't know what the quote is.
Yeah, I can't think of it right now.
But I actually was having a really like in-depth discussion with my friend about this the other day. And I was like, I'm so sick of, in these climbing documentaries or things, of people saying that climbing is this inherently selfish pursuit, right? And I was like, I understand to the point of like people who are worried it's a risky thing and they don't want to see their loved ones get hurt or, you know, die. But it's no more selfish than any pursuit, really. In my mind's like, you know, if you're so willing to just not be selfish, it's a balance. You know, if you either lose yourself, you lose your sense of self, or you're just completely selfish, and like finding that line. And I don't know. I don't see climbing as a selfish endeavor at all, and mostly because a big part of it for me is like things like this, the community and getting to know people. And there's plenty of ways to give back. That being said, I also am not climbing at a super elite level.
And that quote about it not really having a purpose, I think it was directed at, I don't know, the activity itself or the process of going through a climb. You're moving up a piece of rock. However, all of these other things that kind of spawn from a community, advocacy, all of these other things, in that sense, it does have a purpose for sure. So
I think it's never about what you're doing. It's always about what you've learned from it and who you're doing it with. Sure. Right. And
that, I mean, it really promotes that, or just really encourages that climbing does, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you could argue, bouncing a ball and putting it through a net.
Sure.
Like basketball, socially acceptable hobby, but like, it's ridiculous. And it started off with like literal, like, football started off, I think, with like pigskins, like any sport. Nothing in life, I don't know. My biggest thing, and I think that you would probably think this as well, is like, as long as you're being kind and like doing things that make you happy, like, Yep. Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for being on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I was really hyped to get to actually sit down. So just a quick story before I jump off. But DJ and I literally, the reason I was so happy to get him to sit down and talk to me is because I walk into the gym right when he leaves, almost like I'd say probably 75% of the time. And he always says, hi, bye. Mm-hmm. And I say, hi, bye.
Yep.
But I appreciate it. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in to this episode of the Crag Chat Podcast. And we hope to see you next time. Thanks.